Hey guys, welcome back to the WeBUS podcast. I'm here with Jonathan Hard, otherwise known as 75 Hard Jonathan. Thanks for joining the podcast, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Wes.
So, the goal with this podcast is to share experiences with other dads. And one of the experience I want to share is the experience of watching you go from Jonathan to Jonathan Hard. And wow, I'm going to hopefully have editing skills enough to put up those pictures you sent me of the before and the mids and the afters and stuff. But tell me, who was Jonathan?
Man, if I rewind the clock to about 2 years ago, before I started this whole, 75 hard journey, before I started with WeBUS, if I rewind the clock back to then, I was in the middle of it, like some really hard life challenges. I would say without a doubt, my marriage was on the rocks. I was probably no more than a couple weeks away from divorce at that point. Um, Things at work were going absolutely terrible. I was overweight. I was drinking heavily. I was in a really tough spot, in a spot that I didn't ever think I would end up in, but it just kind of seemed to be where I ended up, like how life had developed and it led me down this path. And I found myself at a place that I think a lot of people find themselves at. It's just, I guess we're here. I was
Yeah, I was going to say, been there, done
Yeah,
that.
just having a really hard time adjusting to life. I wasn't happy with my job, wasn't happy with what was going on in the household, what was going on with, just really everything around me. And it had been like a product of all of the decisions I had made that had brought me to that point. It was just a really dark time.
You mentioned that you were originally not in this podcast, but before that you were married before, and you
Yep.
just mentioned your marriage was on the rocks. You're like a couple weeks away from that, but I know you pretty well now, and even though we haven't met in person yet, I'm excited to do that soon. You got married pretty young, right?
I did. Right after high school, it was, I got married at, I think, the age of 21. I think is
So high
when
school sweethearts, right?
Yeah, it's high school sweethearts. We thought, everything was going to be fairy tales and, the Disney lifestyle that we were just going to kind of ride off into the sunset and everything was going to be perfect. And
Yeah,
turns
I've
out
got friends who
life,
did that and are still doing it. Donovan, like him and Kimberly, they're high school sweethearts. When did you guys originally meet? Like what grade?
I was a senior in high school
Uh-huh.
and she was just finishing her sophomore year.
See, that
So
makes sense too. You're a senior, you know everything in the world,
yeah,
brother. Right? You're like, this is gonna work out. I got it.
I
I'm an
thought it
adult,
all.
baby.
Yeah, I thought I had it all figured out. It's just it was back and forth. It was hot and cold for a little bit. And then, it was like, okay, after I finished high school, I stuck around for about 6 more months, started working. And then, my wife at the time, she finished high school. And, before graduation, we already had plans to move to California. And it was just going to be, happily ever after kind of thing. And it turns
Mm.
out marriage is a lot more work than that. So,
Oh my God, especially at that age when you're trying to find yourself, let
yep.
alone, navigate that with somebody else too.
hmm Yeah, and being that far removed away from family and, just kind of being out in our, on our own, trying to build friendships and build relationships that last. And, it turns out that, when you're 20 something years old, you do a lot of time growing. And whether that's
Yeah.
together or apart, you spend a lot of time kind of figuring out who you are.
Totally. Oh my gosh. And you've really figured out who you are, I think, over the last couple of years, that's for sure. But now take me through, okay, high school sweetheart thing doesn't work out. That makes sense. When you look back at it now at your age, I would imagine the wisdom you've
Yeah.
gained, you're like, no, it makes sense that didn't work out. And I am where I am now. And I have the wife I do. Walk me through that new marriage of yours and how that came to
Yeah.
fruition.
So I will say after I got divorced, I felt like like discounted goods. I felt discarded. I felt broken.
Yeah,
I felt,
not to gloss over that at all, Jonathan. Sorry to interrupt, but I don't want to
that's
gloss over that. It's more just like, wow, I can understand why that wouldn't work out, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
hmm Yeah, so when I got back on the dating scene, I'm trying to find somebody to build a life with, and things had changed. Moving from high school sweethearts, where you're amongst groups of friends, to being in a new city in a new state, 1,000 miles away from home. Online
Where
dating
were
started to
you
become
from?
uh, I, say that again?
Originally, where were you from?
Spokane, Washington.
Okay, so Washington, California. You got it. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
Washington, California. So it opened up, this whole new online dating at the time. It's like that weird gray area of like, hey, is it still weird to date online? Is it
Yeah.
is it cool now?
What year was this? What year was
This is
this?
2011.
Oh yeah, this is like really like I mean, eHarmony has been around for forever,
Yeah,
and it was just an old person thing at that point. But then
yeah.
like Tinder started to come out, and all these other like weird ones. And so like actually, we have multiple friends who met on Tinder and are married, have
Hmm.
multiple kids, freaking love each other. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Hmm.
Anyways, keep you met your wife on a dating.
I met my wife on a dating app. Funny thing was, I only messaged one lady on the dating app, and happened to be my wife. I was like, you know what? She's
Wow.
pretty damn cool, and I think I'm gonna make this one work. So,
If that doesn't say that the universe is pulling you in some direction,
yeah,
man, hell yeah, that's awesome. Heck yeah.
yeah.
So you guys meet on this dating app. You go on one, two, three, four, 10 dates before you decide that this is the one. What happens? How do you
Oh
decide
man,
this is the one? I want to go
light.
from this is the one, this is the new one, this is what I'm going to start my life with to hey, we're 2 weeks away from being divorced.
Yeah, and
Right? Like where were you?
yeah, it was, in the beginning of any new relationship, it's all cool and new, and we were on summer vacation from we were both attending the same university, so we went to school together. She was in the science program, I was in the business program. But we were on summer break, and it was like, this is great. We can travel, we can go do fun things. And then fall started, school started,
Oh,
and it just was like, oh my gosh, I guess we're back into it, back doing our own kind of separate lives. And after about 6 months, we found out she was pregnant. So actually, on Father's Day, 2011, 2012, yeah, Father's Day 2012, we found out she was pregnant. And the the interesting thing about that weekend, Father's Day weekend, we were getting ready to move from a three-bedroom house to a one-bedroom apartment in downtown Sacramento, so we could go hang out with our friends and party and just do all the cool midtown Sacramento things. And life changed from there immediately. Yeah,
brakes got put on real quick.
yeah,
So did you guys actually move into that apartment or did
we
you guys
did. Yeah, we had signed
okay,
a
how
lease.
did you navigate that whole thing?
Oh, it was a challenge, having a first baby. It just, it turned into a lot of learning experience, a lot of really fast learning experiences over that time. And we had moved around. She wanted to be a lot closer to family. So 3 weeks after our daughter was born, she's like, "Hey, I want to go back to Southern California." She's originally from like the Ventura, Camarillo, Thousand Oaks area. And she
Okay.
said,
Yeah, yeah.
"Hey, I can't do this alone. I want to be near my parents. So
Of
you can
course,
come
that's what
with
we did
me."
when we had
Yeah.
our family. Came up when Megan had her whole family, you know? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. She's like, you can come with me if you want. And I'm like, well, we're married and you got my baby. So yeah, I guess
I'm
I'll
coming.
figure it out. I'm
Yeah.
going. So we
Caboose
packed
is coming.
packed up again, and we moved down to the Grover Beach area. So we spent about seven more years on the Central Coast, and we had another child. We had our son in 2015, and now we're two babies into this and trying to figure out life. And with young kids, it gets crazy sometimes. And I had an opportunity to right in the middle of 2020 to pack up and move to Texas. And moving away from friends and family, it puts a lot of strain on a relationship when you're moving from such like a solid core group of friends that are really there to support you. They're there through thick and thin. They help you through the good times and the bad times. But when you move away, all that like kind of disappears. So we found ourselves with really no friend group, just trying to adjust to life in Texas. And that's where it started to get really rocky. My
Yeah, of
wife was
course.
upset. It was just kids are adjusting. I'm trying to adjust, and without a friend group or a support network, things just really started to fall apart, finding ourselves like kind of nitpicking at each other and blaming each other. And it started to get to a point where it's like, maybe we should just call it quits. We gave it a
Man,
solid try.
God, I felt that shift when we went from one to two kids. I don't know if that's where you felt it, but you also had a huge move in there as well. And you're trying to get healthy and you're switching jobs. You had a lot more transitions kind of than I did. And I remember just going from, it felt like we were on zone defense with this one kid, and this kid would just be like, okay, cool, I'm good. I got two parents here to help me out. So, like, now you're on man to man and you're trying to split this thing, and you're trying to get your time, but you just can't, and
Mhm.
you're trying to get others time, but you just can't. And man, I don't know how it was for you, but for the first, 4 5-ish years for us, it was and is, still sometimes very rough
It
for
is.
sure.
Yeah,
Man,
it's a
can
very,
you,
very challenging time,
well,
especially when
one of
they're
the
young.
things that I was really stoked about hearing was all of the challenging times that you've been through, because in WeBUS, our whole goal is through shared experience, we grow wiser and we can actually learn that, hey, we're not alone. These things happen to other people, and there's multiple ways to fix one problem, right?
Hmm.
So when you say, man, I went through all of this, I was a high school sweetheart, got a divorce, got another, marriage, had two kids, moved, and then we're going to go into hopefully right now your health journey and what happened with that, and how everything's gotten so much better. It's just all of those are shared experiences for our WeBus community. They're things that a dad is going to come on and go, oh my God, I have a kid coming and I'm having to move, and I've never moved, and we're moving away from our family. We're going to have nobody there. And like, I don't know what to do. And we're going to have like 12 dudes that come on to
Hmm.
WeBus and are like, I'm
Yeah.
there. Actively doing that right now or whatever, and so one thing that really stood out to me was the first time that you posted in WeBus that I remember was you sitting at a table at your work, and it was your old job. You had a
Hmm.
beard and you were much bigger than you are now. And there was, like, I remember, electrical box behind you and like a couple shelves, and it was almost like the room looked cold, and you looked cold, and you looked tired. Can you walk me through where you were at that time, right before your big move and everything that happened?
Yeah. Uh, I do remember that time. I remember that office as well. It was, I don't know if it was just the building, or just the entire energy around what was going on in life at that time. But it was a very dark time. I said, my wife and I were going through it. We were just kind of in the thick of everything just going wrong. She was upset and just kind of disconnected from family. The two of us weren't connecting. The main challenge, I think, when I very first came on into the group, I was at a point where I had a feeling that my job was going to be over at any moment. I'd spent 10 years in this job, just kind of pouring my heart and soul into this place. It was the main reason that we had moved to Texas. And from there, yeah, I knew that things just weren't going to end very well at all. So I was kind of looking for, some kind of lifeline, like a raft, something else to occupy my time, because mentally I was
Mm.
struggling. I was drinking a lot. I had gotten to a point where I'd gained 120 pounds. I think, when I when I had
Wow.
when I got
I didn't
married,
realize you gained that much weight in that time.
yeah,
I just assumed that was kind of a lifelong thing.
no. Yeah, I think right after we started having kids, it was like every year it was like 10 pounds more, and then you lose 5 pounds, and you gain 20 pounds, and you lose 10 pounds, you gain 30 pounds, lose 20 pounds, and it
This is
started to
a
really
story.
stack up.
This is a story I've seen every single day in my gym with every dad. Honestly, it's really rare that I see a dad that goes through any of those life changes and doesn't see that happen. So,
Hmm.
yeah, totally normal for sure.
Yep. So I was at a place where work wasn't going well, my marriage wasn't going well, just life in general just didn't seem to have a lot of hope of things really going well. Um, and I spent a lot of time drinking a lot as kind of
Of
a
course.
method to cope for how terrible things were going.
Hell
And I
yeah,
rem
because alcohol makes things feel better for a little bit, right?
temporarily. But I remember having a birthday party just before that, and I shared this story. I
I
won't
remember
share all
this.
the gory details of it, but I found myself with a group of friends that I really was trying to get connected to, and I thought this was going to be my outlet, a way that I could kind of improve my life, or kind of move on from just being depressed and just being alone and just kind of feeling like I'm going through it by myself.
Oh yeah.
Um, and it turns out that group just it wasn't helping me get any better. It wasn't propelling me anywhere forward. It really just kind of had me stuck in this mentality of like, life sucks, marriage sucks. Let's complain about our wives. Let's just describe how terrible our children are. Let's not do anything to improve our physical fitness. Like, we're just going to stay stuck in it.
God, been around those people, man. Their
Yeah.
energy sucking, when it's just constantly like, oh, dude, my kid is always bothering me, and this is my work sucks, and blah blah blah. And that's the conversation every time you see them.
Hmm.
Instead, dude, my kid got an award at school last week, or like my wife actually is crushing it at work, or she's not doing good, or my kids aren't doing good. It's like, but
Hmm.
just being real about the situation is what we're looking for, I think, and we
Yep.
find that those relationships that end up being soaked in alcohol most of the time. And I raise my coffee cup because I know you've been alcohol free for how long now?
Over 2 years. November
Dude,
3rd
that's so
was
awesome,
two
man.
years. So yeah, we're still going
Proud of you.
strong.
Yeah, man. And we're just drinking coffee like crazy, and now running marathons coming up soon. And now losing, I mean, how much weight have you lost, dude? I mean, I know
Uh,
weight's not the thing of health,
yeah,
but that's a
I
number that people can get their head wrapped around at least.
110 pounds
Oh my
from start to finish. 110 pounds. Yeah,
God, what?
yeah.
Like
It was a
that's the fuel for my fire, man. That's the stuff that just gets me so jazzed, is watching people understand what they're actually capable of. I remember you whipping your butt in the freaking hallway with the jump rope and trying to figure out
yeah,
how, and then they're like, okay, I'm gonna be the running guy now. And then, becoming the running guy that was like, okay, now I'm gonna be the strong guy, and then joining
hmm
the CrossFit gym. And now you're actually meeting up with another WeBUS member, Kevin, here pretty soon, coming up in December, right? In Sacramento.
yeah, absolutely. Actually, two of them. I think I'm going to have the opportunity to meet up with Kevin and Eric Wise.
Dude,
I
oh yeah,
think,
that's right, Eric as
yeah,
well. And I swear, if we don't have anything going on, I'm coming up. I'm driving up. It's only a couple hours, so I'll
that'd be
fly up.
amazing.
But so, how do you go from? I got this group of friends that I could see it now. The writing on the wall is clear that this is not the group that's going to lead me to where I want to be. Now what?
Yeah. So after we had moved back to or we had moved to Texas, and I remember coming back for Christmas in 2022. So we spent a number of years on the Central Coast in California, up in the San Luis Obispo area, and
Mm-hmm.
we came back for Christmas that year. Spent the holidays with a bunch of friends. We talked about New Year's resolutions. We talked about things that were going on. Just how I missed that group of friends in California. Everybody was kind of like trying to find something new to do. Everybody was in business for themselves, growing their lives, getting better. And I was like, I haven't found that in Texas at all. And I actually had the opportunity to have breakfast with Zeke, the OG. Uh,
Mm,
yeah,
the
so
beard
I had an
dude.
opportunity to have breakfast with him when I was back on that trip, and I was like, "Hey, man, like I'm struggling, and I'm really struggling hard. Like I find myself just kind of in this constant state of like this constant loop of like get a little bit better, things go great, something bad happens, go back to my old habits. Like get a little bit better, something happens, go back to my old habits, and it's just like terrible downward spiral. And I remember
Yeah.
having breakfast with Zeke, and I was like, "Dude, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like, yeah, I'm like doing this walking thing. I'm like started this thing called 75 hard, and I think it's going a little bit better. But it was very early on. This is like maybe 2 or 3 weeks after I had started, and I was like, man, I'm lost. And one of the things that he said to me during that breakfast that like really sticks out to me, he was like, it's not about, advice at all, but it was something that like really resonated with me. He's like, if I can give an observation from just what I kind of see going on, he's like, you've got this hole that exists in your life of, crummy childhood, bad relationships, like everything that went wrong to get you to this point, and that hole that exists, that's comfort for you. Every time that
Mm,
things go bad, you go back into the hole. You go back
mm,
to, self-sabotage and drinking and just, treating yourself poorly because it seems like that's where you're most comfortable. And he's like, what we're going to do is figure out a way to fill in that hole where no matter
yeah.
how bad things get, we never go back in the hole. Like we
It's
have a
easy to
new
jump out of
baseline.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, we're going to crawl out of that hole once and we're going to fill that hole in and we're never going back in the hole. He's like,
Yeah.
that's where we're going to go. And I was
Because he
like,
was saying, because
yeah,
I'm with you in this,
yeah,
right? I'm going to help you do this. It's not like, okay, now go do it.
yeah,
See you later.
yeah. And I remember um, I drove to California from Texas. I was driving back from California to Texas on my way after that trip, and I spent probably another 3 or 4 hours on the phone with Zeke. Like, man, I need help. I need to get this done. I need to turn things around because things are not going well. And it was such a powerful conversation that I remember coming back home and I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a new job. I'm going to get out of the hole that I'm in. I'm going to stop drinking and I'm going to move on with my life.
Wow.
Um, and then maybe a week later, I joined the WeBUS crew, and that was that first video you saw. It was like I was in a really dark place.
I've seen worse, that's for sure. But you could tell that you were just wanting to be happier and
Hmm.
healthier. You could tell that you wanted some warmth in your life for sure, just like
Yeah.
some good feels and everything, man. And if there's anybody that could give that to somebody, it's Zeke, like that guy is such a wise soul and understands exactly what people need when they need it. So
Hmm.
um, one of the things that the group is built on is shared experiences, and I'm sure that Zeke shared some experiences in that time that he'd been through to say, hey, look, you can do this as well. I came from the same bad upbringing. I came from the
Hmm.
same struggles as you, divorce and moving on and trying to get remarried and all of this, right? And it's like, what is something or a moment in WeBus that you can remember where that true, like you said, you spent hours talking to Zeke and being so vulnerable and open, that true vulnerability was brought out, or you saw this transformation in some way. Can you think of a time where you were just like, dude, this freaking thing, WeBus, is like, what the hell? This is amazing, whether it was for you or for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say with Zeke, he actually has it memorialized on his arm in a tattoo. And if I remember correctly, it's a blue van. So he shared this experience about his upbringing and just kind of where life was at for him as a child, going through multiple, it sounded like parents dealing with multiple addictions at the same time and becoming homeless. And I remember him telling me this story about this van, about his life as a young child, and you're kind of at that point where I remember connecting with him a lot on that because my childhood, I didn't have a safe place to be as a child.
Mm.
Constant court battles and abuse, physical, emotional, sexual abuse as a child. And, as a 5 to 8 year old, like you can't, like, what are you going to do? You're supposed to be in the care of people who are going to care for you,
Yes.
and kind of protect you from the world of all the dangers of the world and prepare you for life. And that was one of the stories I really connected with Zeke on. And that was one of the moments that I'm like, hey man, this WeBus thing, like I need to be a part of it. Like I don't care what it takes to be a part of this, but I need to be a part of this community because, to have a grown man sharing an experience that's so vulnerable and raw, it tells me that this is different. It tells me that this isn't like, hey man, we're gonna get together, we're gonna taste some bourbons and go shoot golf and just complain about our lives.
And
It's
ignore the
real,
actual things that
yeah,
are eating us inside,
yeah.
right?
And
Yeah. And
and we're gonna
you,
talk about the things that like really connect us as human beings.
we got to take a second to realize how well linguistically you just glossed over divorce, child abuse, sexual abuse. I mean, we do that so often, not only as a society, but especially men in this society. You made that a 4-second part of this podcast. And I think that that's great because you're able to understand that, like, hey, this doesn't need to be a big thing.
Hmm.
But sometimes we can just, continue to sweep that under the rug to the point where it becomes a 4-second big thing inside of us, right? It looks
Mm-hmm.
like nothing outside, but wow, it's festering inside of us and it's eating away. And when you say that, what I immediately do is go, it makes complete sense why you went through everything that you went through. How could anybody expect to be anything with that foundation as a child underneath them? So the fact that you became anything, the fact that you were even able to have a first marriage, let alone a second marriage, let alone handle a move, let alone not only get a job, but dude, you are a freaking smart human, dude. Like, you guys, I can't tell you what this guy actually does. It's like, it's too secret. You can't know. I'm sorry, but like, that's how smart this guy is. But what would make more sense is if 75 Hard Jonathan was in jail, was divorced again, had illegitimate kids, wasn't paying child support, working under the table as a construction worker everywhere else in Grover
Hmm.
Beach. That would
Yeah.
make a lot of sense. Hanging out on the dunes, and I probably, as I was a firefighter in Pismo, would come and pick you up off the dunes because you did something stupid, and you would tell me that you couldn't go to the hospital while your leg was hanging this way because you don't have insurance. And I'm going, that doesn't matter, brother. You're fucked. Here we go. And
Yeah.
I've seen this play out so many times, but what we don't see play out so many times is you, brother. We don't see this story play out that way. So the fact that you were able to go through this, become what you are today, and be able to also have the lack of ego, the amazing foundation, and the bravery to share all of those things within WeBUS for our, dudes to be able to reap the rewards of, is just like, we are not worthy, my man. We are not worthy.
I
You are,
appreciate that, man.
dude.
So,
I don't want
one.
this thing too long, and so we are going to kind of start to wrap it up a little bit. But I think we could honestly do like 12 podcasts with just going back and digging through these stories with you, man. And I hope you would be willing to revisit that sometime in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
There's one thing I want to say on that is that where I got that power, that strength is actually through Switch, Chris Ronas. Huge shout out to him. There were plenty of times I came onto the podcast, or I came onto the WeBUS main group and was like, I don't know what to do with this. And one of the things he said to me that is held true, that I still hold on to, is that every single time I tell my story or I
Mhm.
become vulnerable, those words hold less and less power over me every single time. And that's why now, today, 2 years later, I'm able to share that without having it like fester or bubble inside of me. Like I've shared that story enough. I've been vulnerable with that story enough that it holds zero power over my life or who I can be in the future, which is something that, like, without WeBUS, I wouldn't be there.
I would even add to that and say you're taking that and composting it and turning it into something beautiful for other people to use every time you share it as well. So now it even becomes a positive every time you think about it, because you think about all of the people it's helped. And it's helped a lot of people in WeBus already, man. And I want to say the short amount of time you've been in there, but honestly, it feels like you've been in there the whole time, dude. I feel like you are just you. That's the feeling I get with almost everybody I talk to, honestly, in WeBus. It's just like, I feel like we've been friends forever, type of
Yeah.
thing. And I think that's what happens when you just start to find people that honestly, like, are willing to just be honest with who they are, what they've been through, and they don't put a mask on that. They don't put alcohol in front of that. They don't put whatever else they're using to shield just honesty, just true honest. This is how life is. It's messy. It's crazy. I can't believe we make it through it. And you know what? It's better when you got a van full of WeBus dudes to do it with. You know,
Hmm.
we're planning right now WeBus camp. How pumped are you for that?
I am so jazzed. I actually said something in the group the other day. I was like, "Hey, why not now? Like, can't we just do it like right now? Like, I don't want
I
to wait until
know, man.
summer. Like right
I
now.
think
How
what
soon
we
can I make
do
this happen?"
We need to do like a midway one with the board and get together. So I mean, we got to test it anyways.
Yeah,
Again, make sure it
we
works
got to
well.
figure out
So
what works.
but the goal with the WeBUS camp is for it to be a weekend that guys go to and come back from that wives want them to go back to immediately again because they come
Hmm.
back as better humans. They come back as more loving, more kind, more wise, more integral. And even if they were those things, they enhance those things and they bring that experience to help us enhance that within us. And the more we grow this WeBUS crew that we got here, both within each region and globally, the more wisdom that we can create, right, through shared experiences.
Yeah.
You got 10 seconds in an elevator with somebody that is a really good friend of yours, and they're struggling, they were where you were in that cold, dark office, just going, damn it. What do you say to them? How do you get them in WeBUS?
Oh, what I would say to them is that there is a light. There is a light out there, and there are plenty of other people going through those same experiences you may be going through. We don't have to do this alone. It is possible to do it with people that want to see the best out of you. And if you want to
Boom.
join a group that will live to see the day and to be there with you every step of the way, we got a place for that.
Jonathan Hard, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you for taking the time in the middle of a Monday to do
Yeah,
this as well. I appreciate you.
absolutely.
I hope we can have you back on again, man, because I want to actually dig through a little bit more of this stuff. But if you guys have any questions for Jonathan, please post them in the comments below. We'll probably see a version 2 of this. We'd love to ask those questions about his childhood, about his experiences. How did he get from where he is to where he is now, or where he was to where he is now? How did he become this stud that you guys see here in front of you? And if you guys want more information on WeBUS, go to www.webusint.com and hit the join WeBUS there. Jeremy will reach out to you and we'll get you into a group. Thank you again, Jonathan. Hang on. Make sure you don't hang up when we're done here, and we'll see you guys soon.
It's amazing. Thank you, Wes.